What's up, everyone? It's me, your boy Ceddy, a Ceddy Knows Tech. And in this video, we're going to talk about upgrading the PS5 with an additional SSD so that you can have more storage on your system for games and, videos and so forth. If you were one of the lucky ones to actually get your hands on the PS5, one of the first things you will realize is that the games are a lot larger because there's a lot more going on with the games, graphic-wise and so forth, and that your internal drive will quickly fill up. Thus, you will need to upgrade the internal SSD. Sony was kind of forward thinking in that, and they actually built an approach to upgrade the storage. You can add an additional SSD onto it, and it's just a couple little things that you will have to know and do. You just can't throw any SSD in here. You will want to make sure that it's fast enough to be able to, support the games and so forth. So you want an SSD that has pretty high reads and writes on it, as well as you really do want an SSD that has a HeatSink on it so that it can dissipate heat that will be generated from the use of that drive. So as that drive is being used, it will create heat, and then a HeatSink will dissipate that heat off, thus keeping your system stable and functioning. In my case, what I'm using here is a Samsung 980. It's an SSD, it's a M.2 SSD NVMe. This particular drive has a heatsink built onto it so that it can handle the dissipation of heat that's generated from the drive, while in use. It's got a, read speed up to 7,000 megabits a second. So that's a really fast drive. And a write speed, I'm trying to see if I can see it on here. I'm not sure what the write speed is, but I know that this particular drive has been built for the PS5 in particular, or it's been built so that it has all the specifications needed for the PS5. So it's got a high speed, high read speed, a high write speed, and it has that heat sink built onto it. So this is definitely one of the drives if you're looking at upgrading your SSD, and not upgrading, but adding that additional SSD to your system. This is definitely one that you might want to look for. These drives aren't cheap. You're looking about $400 for this particular drive. This is one of my Christmas gifts that I got from the family, so thank you. And like I said, it has to be a certain specification for the drive. It has to be an NVMe drive, an M.2 drive. It's got to have high reads and writes on it, as well as a heat sink. So I'll be using that drive for it. This is my PS5, and you will need a Phillips screwdriver. I use a kit called from iFixit. It's the kit that I've been using for a lot of my computer work and so forth, for upgrading machines and everything. I like it a lot. So, but that's just what I use. But you might have your own kit that you use for these kind of upgrades. But that's the kind of tools that you will need to upgrade your PS5. It's really not difficult. There's a few steps that we'll talk about in a second. But let's get into it. Let's go ahead and upgrade this bad boy and add this 2 terabyte drive into my PS5 so that I can store more games and so forth. Now, the first thing you want to do when you're updating your PS5 is to make sure that you have went ahead and did a complete update on the PS5 itself. So, go in, make sure you have the latest and greatest updates from Sony on your PS5. And this way, that will ensure that you have the latest firmware, driver updates, any kind of software updates that's out there from Sony. This way, when you do the upgrade, if they added any kind of utilities, updated drivers, or anything to help assist with the upgrade of the SSD, that will already be on your PS5, ready to go. Now, the first thing you want to do when updating your PS5 is make sure you have it where the drive slot is pointing upwards, compared to facing down. Make sure it's pointing upwards. And what you want to do is on this back panel here, just kind of lift up slightly and then push inward. And when you do that, the top of the drive will pop off easily. So we're going to go ahead and set that aside so that we can get into the PS5 itself. And if you see right here, this little door right here, This is going to be the expansion drive, or the expansion slot, I should say, for the external SSD. And if you look at it closely, you will actually see that the PlayStation like symbols, the square, the circle, the triangle, is printed onto that screw to kind of let you know this is the screw that we're going to use to upgrade the hard drive. And basically, you just kind of get your screwdriver. I'm using a kit from iFixit. It's a kit that I've been using for a while now. And basically, you want to go ahead and take this metal drive off. So just using a Phillips screwdriver, you just kind of go in there, and it should be pretty much easy to pull off. You just unscrew that, take the screw off, set that aside because you will need it later, so don't lose it. And you should be able at that point take off the drive itself for the SSD expansion. So now let's go ahead and take a closer look at this drive right here. As you can see, we have a screw kind of holding everything together, like a little black screw right here on the outset. And then there's these other holes that we will use to, depending on the size of your SSD that you'll be using to expand your PS5, depends on where you will set that screw at with the drive installed. So we have a 30, a 40, a 60, a 80, and then 100 at the very top. No, 110, I'm sorry, 110 at the very top. For this particular drive we'll be using here, we'll be utilizing the 80 slot. So the only thing we have to do is come here, unscrew the screw, be very careful not to strip it or apply too much force on it because you don't want to lose it. And get this screw completely out and set that aside. And then you'll see that there's also a washer here. Be very careful with this washer. As you can see that in my hand, let me see if I can kind of get it close up. This washer, you will actually place that washer, in this case, like I said, for this particular hard drive, into the slot that says 80, because that's where our hard drive will go at. So we'll put that down in there, into that slot there. I'm about to lose, I'm being silly. There we go. And with that said, now we will simply come here and we're going to take this hard drive out. This is what it looks like. Like I said, the SSD that you want to put in here, into your PS5, you really want to make sure that the SSD, it has basically a HeatSink. That's this all this metal piece, or this additional, the component up here, which is metal. You want one of these on your drive because this drive will be used to store your games, run your games off of and stuff. So it's going to be a lot of processing, a lot of writing and reading, or reading and writing off this drive, which will produce a lot of heat. So you want to make sure that it's got a heat sink on it so it can dissipate all that heat and, continue to make your, PS5 work, function properly. But basically, in a nutshell, to put it in, you would simply just kind of from an angle, you want to push the hard drive in there. It should just slide in place and just kind of lay it down. Now, as you can see, you want to push just a little pressure just to make sure it's in there securely. And you can see that that washer that we put in there earlier lines up perfectly with the drive itself. So like I said, in this particular model, we're going to use the 80 hole for putting your washer in. This way, the drive lines up to that 80 mark along with that washer. And then the screw that you pulled out there earlier, you would just kind of reinsert that back in, carefully back into there, and you'll just screw that back in place. Now, don't strip it, just enough pressure to kind of get it there and make sure it's secure. And now you can see The new hard drive is now securely in place in the expansion slot. And from there, now everything's pretty much done. You would take the hard drive door that we took off earlier, and you'll see there's like a lip right there. That lip fits into the corner here of the of the drive slot, and it should just seamlessly, kind of go back in place easily. You should not be putting no pressure on any component because you don't want to strip or break anything on this bad boy. And then you just kind of put the screw back in place. Like I said, you just want to make sure it's secure in there. And once you're confirmed that it's now secure in there, now you can put the cover back on, and the cover is just as easy as you put it on there. Actually, put that on there right. Actually, I put it on there wrong. Actually, let me make sure I put it in the right spot. Oh yeah, it's right here. Yes, and then it should just snap back in place. And once you hear that snap, that means it's back in place, good and getting it good. Just kind of make sure it's on there securely. And that is it. That is how simple it is to upgrade your PS5 SSD. So as you can see, upgrading the PS5 is pretty straightforward, compared to other upgrades and so forth. Upgrading the PS5 is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of steps in it. It's pretty easy to do. You just got to make sure that you have the right tools and the right drive. That's really important. I highly recommend this particular drive. It's being used by a lot of other people who have modded their PS5, or not necessarily modded, but upgraded their PS5s. They've used this drive. It's been built to make sure that it falls within the specifications needed for the PS5 and so forth. Now, once you actually get your PS5 upgraded, you will actually hook it back to your TV, add the power back to it and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to pop up a screen that says, hey, we need to format the hard drive that you just inserted. So the PS5 will recognize that a new hard drive has been inserted into it. Go ahead and agree and, accept that you are formatting that hard drive. It's not formatting your internal drive. It's formatting your hard drive on the PS5. And another thing you want to do is, once that's all done, the PS5 will restart, and then you'll be back in business. It will do some rebuilding of the database and all that kind of stuff internally to kind of get everything back in sync, and then you're ready to go again. But now if you go back into settings and look at your storage options, you will now see that you now have that M.2 NVMe drive installed in your PS5, and you can actually take the games and so forth that's on your internal drive and go ahead and move them over to your new hard drive, thus freeing up your internal drive for other things. And you can start storing, your games and things like that onto your new hard drive on your PS5. So that's about it. That's all to it. So if you like this kind of content and more, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please, and hit that bell icon so you know when I push new content to the channel. And again, my name is Ceddy, Ceddy Knows Tech. And until the next video, as always, stay geeky, stay techy. Ceddy out.